Founded in 1999 by Jason Burks, Retrospec Films is Oklahoma's largest turnkey production company of its kind. With over 2 decades of experience, a full-time team of over 20 talented individuals, a 12,000 square foot studio to create in, and thousands of successfully completed projects in both entertainment and advertising. You're in the right place if you like hearing some good old filmmaking stories. On this podcast, we will discuss the pursuit of creating things and the problems we solve by digging up projects from across the last 20 years and giving you a glimpse behind the scenes where the magic happens. You're listening to Retrospec Films from the Archives.
Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us on Retrospec from the Archives, where we dig into old projects from the past and talk about all the problems we solved creating those. I'm excited today to talk about a really amazing project that we got a chance to work on this last year. And with me is Josh Tackett, our
Hello.
post-production director.
That's me.
That's him. And Adam, I'm not going to do it this time.
Not going to say it wrong or not going to say it right?
I'm not going to spend 30 minutes on your last name.
Sorry, just fill it in the lower third. I'll let the audience guess.
Vigil.
See, you say it perfectly every time.
Perfect.
Vigil Santiago.
That's wrong.
Okay, sorry. Adam.
That's my uncle.
Cinematographer, director, writer, colorist, editor. What do you claim first?
Janitor sometimes.
I like that. That's where my roots
A
are.
servant's heart.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually my first job.
Oh.
No lie.
It's my first. I
not
passed
even-
out chips to
Was that
tables.
before Brahms? Because we always talk about
It
your Brahms
was.
job.
I used to stack chairs at a church. I was a
okay.
janitor.
Oh, wow.
You should ask him about his Brahms stories. They're
I
pretty
will.
funny.
I won't do it now, but I will. All right, so we are going to talk today about a really unique project that came to us probably in 2021? Maybe it was 2021. It started that way.
I should have looked this up before.
That's all right.
I think that's right.
So there is a absolutely amazing, would we call him a musician, a vocalist, a writer?
All of those things. I think.
All those things.
Yeah, all the above.
His name is Andrea Bocelli and has, in my perspective, some of the most incredible music that has ever existed on planet Earth. And conveniently, my wife also loves him, so I've gotten to know him even more since her and I got married. And we've both sang many of his songs at the top of our lungs, not in the presence of other humans, probably for the better. But let's start this project off, or this story off today with you, Tackett, because I feel like you were at some of the very beginning points of this project.
Yeah, basically kind of started off with, we got a phone call from one of our clients that we've worked with for a long time on a lot of really fun stuff, Impact Productions, and they basically, the first time that we had even heard of this, they came to us and said, hey, we have this project. We've got footage ready. It's already been filmed and everything, but we need to we want to cut a trailer and start kind of getting the idea out there. I don't know why the trailer came first, but it had something to do with that process. But they needed a trailer. And so, can we send you a hard drive and would you guys take a stab at it? And we're like, absolutely. What is it? And they throw out Andrea Bocelli's name, and we're all kind of like, is this real? So sure enough, the hard drive arrives and we take on the project, and the trailer came together pretty quickly, and because it needed to be, but also it just was a really cool experience putting that together. And through that process, they liked the trailer so much that I remember thinking when I was working on the trailer, I was thinking, I'm gonna do a really good job on this, because I know they said this show hasn't been edited yet, and like how crazy it would be if I just blew them out of the water with the trailer and they would give us the show to edit. And that's exactly what happened, because after we cut the trailer, they said, hey, we want you guys to edit this if you have the the space, basically, because it's going to take a long time.
One day I'll hear the laugh of children in a world where war has been banned.
One day I'll see men of all colors sharing words of love and devotion.
Our life is very short, but at the same time, it's a miracle. I decided to make this journey now because nature is the biggest miracle.
People have called the time that we're living in right now the age of fear. And so what better weapon to keep our hearts fixed on the peace of God than music?
It was a
mini series.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. It kind of morphed
like
across the time.
It's like a 3-episode mini or limited series.
Yeah, it was exactly. And so, you know, what we knew we had all this beautiful footage, interviews, and drone footage from across Italy. And, you know, they shot it on Red and Sony Venice and just these beautiful cameras. They've got crane rigs. They've got, I don't know what the term is, but it's like the car that like is built to follow moving vehicles, you know. I mean, just like
a Russian arm on.
I'm looking at the behind, like, you know, when the camera goes and you can see some of the crew. Like, I'm looking at the crew on this, and I'm like, how are we even? You know, this is amazing. Like that we're involved with such a big production. It's just incredible. And so yeah, but yeah, 4 hard drives showed up, all 16 terabytes. So I think it was, you know, in the upwards of at least 50 to 55 terabytes of footage that we had to look through. And not to mention it was in Italian, a lot of it.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, before you move on to, you know, the next step in it, I'm curious, is there any, like, what was your approach to, I'm going to cut a trailer, it's probably going to be seen by millions, so I hope I do a really good job? I mean, I know there's a lot of theories and thinking, and I don't even know if, Adam, you chimed in any creatively. I know you tend to be a bouncing board for a lot of ideas around here, but TAYA, what was your step one? Was it just look through the footage and find a cool track, or what was your approach?
Yeah, the way it started is, and they didn't just ship us the hard drive, and you know, they actually came down and we met about it and everything, and they sent us some references and different things, trailers that they liked. I think some different Netflix shows, because again, this is going to be more aimed at streaming. And the first thing I did after that meeting is I went and talked to Adam. And I don't know if you remember what we did, but we went up in the theater room.
Yeah.
Maybe you can kind of take it from there on how we kind of.
Yeah, they had kind of I think an unreleased teaser that they had put together, just kind of showing us what a lot of the footage was, and kind of. Also, some of the music was in there too. I think it was just some temporary songs that they knew they weren't going to use at that point, but just to kind of, I think, to use for some other purpose before they reached out to us. But TAYA and I watched the footage and kind of got the idea of like what the story might be, and then really from that point we looked at other shows trailers that are kind of like it's like a road trip, but it's more than a road trip, and it has kind of a. Not like a religious thing, but it's like has like a real heart to it. And how do you kind of balance like the stops of the trip with like the kind of the heart of what the message they wanted to share too, with the music and with the characters and everything that kind of came into it. And so we looked at, I mean, anything from like the Great British Baking Show to like The Long Way Up, or any of those, or Amazing Race, or we looked at just tons of trailers and just started getting ideas. We looked at a lot of Andrea Bocelli's other projects too, just to kind of have something that didn't feel like such like a departure from his brand, but also so we knew of like what new elements to bring to it. So after all of that, we met for maybe an hour, just kind of talking about. First of all, I'm kind of ashamed to admit it, I didn't know who Andrea Bocelli was at the time. I know I know.
Uncultured.
Would you like to sing a chorus from one of his songs real quick, TAYA?
Time to say goodbye. And it's funny because I definitely recognized the music. I just didn't know the person behind it. So it was one of those things where it was like...
If you've seen Step Brothers, you probably heard...
Yeah.
Or you have heard his song.
Yeah. So chances are, if you're watching and you don't know who he is, you've heard his music. I can almost guarantee it.
Yeah.
But so anyway, we put an idea for the trailer. I think we even kind of wrote it on paper
Yeah.
first and said, okay, there's going to be like a stop here, and then it's going to kind of push to this part of the story, maybe like some graphic montages where that kind of, a lot of the dialogue was in Italian. So we had to also decide, like, how do we show something and make it engaging to an American or an English-speaking audience when most of what they're saying in the show is in a different language. So wrestling with ideas and trying to find a creative solution to some of those things too. And then finally, I think you and your dad and the Audio Planet really brought it home in the trailer stage when they kind of had to combine some of the songs. And you can talk about that because that was the process for the entire actual show. But a lot of it was custom scored too.
Yeah. And, one of the coolest things that I took away from them when we met is like we analyzed maybe 10 or 20 trailers, and we wrote on paper, like, it goes for 30 seconds, it drops, something impressive happens, or something, the mood shifts, or like something dramatic happens, or someone says a line that just sticks you.
We kind of had this little...
it was so cool because it's so mathematical, and because we don't cut trailers that often here, it's not our main thing. And it was just interesting looking at the formula and how well it works.
I don't remember there being a time where we've cut a trailer for something that was like shot by someone else too. So it's a matter of like combing through all the available footage and figuring out what's the story. And then now we have to do all of that stuff. And there's like cutting trailers. There's like so much written about it. And it's a science and an art form, and you can see it evolves over time. Like if you look at the trailer for the first Star Wars movie, it looks totally different than what you would see in a movie theater today. And
it's
so
very
how,
like of the times.
yeah,
for sure.
like how does that change? Even just like do you use a narrator? Do you not use? Remember when we were kids, every trailer had a narrator. Now you
Brother
never
Bear,
see that.
is the one I
Yeah, it
always
was the same narrator guy too. So trying to make it modern and figure out like, okay, this is like kind of diagramming what modern trailers do and why they're successful and why they draw people in. So studying all of that just to kind of put that together in it, and then later on seeing that it paid off when they were like, hey, do you want to take the full edit of the show, was pretty cool.
And it was weird because I remember, I don't know why this happened. I can't remember why, but I think it was because it was due, but I took it home on a hard drive and I did it in like 4 hours on a Friday night, which normally I would be like taking Casey out on a date. And I remember going home and be like, hey, this is what happened. We just got this project. I need to get this done tonight, get them a first look. And it just happened. And it happened so quickly because of the research that we did. It wasn't like magic.
I forgot about that, yeah.
It was just because of what we put in, you know what I mean, on the front end and that research and that, like, the idea was already there. It's like, okay, now I just need to get it out,
Yeah.
And obviously, we probably changed a couple of things, but the bulk of it happened pretty quickly once we did that.
I forgot that it was like a Friday, and they're like, we need this Monday or something like that.
It was a lot like
we
that.
didn't have a lot
By
of
the time we
time.
got the hard drive too, from Italy, because that's what we were waiting on. So
it's funny. I feel like through time, and it's really not a big deal, but it's funny in film, whether it be entertainment or it's advertising or whatever. No matter how big the scale, it's always needed immediately.
Yeah.
Like you always think you're going to hit this magical thing. But I think that pressure I've always kind of liked too, because I think that pressure is like, it makes you nimble. It makes you creative. It makes you think about what you can and can't do. I mean, if someone gives you like 2 months to edit something, you'd probably just go crazy.
right.
So
Every great movie or commercial you've seen was written at 2 a.m. by someone really tired and edited by someone who was working like a week straight, and nothing's ever just like comfortable.
You never get the perfect amount of time or the perfect, perfect scenario. But
well, let's talk a little bit about the show. I'll jump us forward in time, and then you can bring us back. But I remember, a year and a month ago when I was in Cannes. I always say it wrong. Cannes.
it just feels wrong.
In France at the global TV market, and we were, shopping our show, Love on the Rocks, and the Andrea Bocelli show was there too, and they were shopping that, and it was so crazy because I was walking by the booth, and the trailer that you edited was playing on a big screen there, and it was just kind of this crazy irony because I was like, oh my gosh, like, a show, because I didn't have a ton of input on that. You were working with them direct, and it was like amazing to be over there in another country at this global market, seeing the TV show that you worked on and the trailer you worked on. But back us up. So you finished the trailer, they called back, said, "Hey, work on the show," which was a large undertaking.
Yeah.
So
We're
talk
gonna
a
send
little.
you
Talk
bunch
about
of hard drives.
I know. Talk about that undertaking, because it's not just easy to just cut a show that's been shot with like 15 cameras in Italy.
Yeah, I mean, the number one biggest challenge is just the scale of the amount of footage that you're looking through, and there's so many things that they captured that we weren't able to put in, just because there's so many people they talk to, and I think they've put it in different formats throughout.
Yeah.
They have a lot of different formats that they're releasing the content, but the biggest thing was Christian and Candace actually coming into our office and saying, "Here's what exists. Here's what, like, there's no way I would have been able to figure it out without them," because Christian was there on set.
Yeah.
The whole trail.
She lived here for a while. I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
she was just
She
here every
was
day.
like an employee, had
Yeah.
a parking
I was like,
space.
"Hey, Christian, how are you?"
Exactly. And so that was number one for sure. It's just, there's no way I would have been able to. I mean, I would have done something, but I don't think it would have been what they wanted or what they
Sure.
intended. It would have been me guessing, I guess. And maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit, but I just feel like the scale of it and the timeline that we were trying to hit.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was huge. And then also dealing with a lot of, so it's a documentary. So you're dealing with a large scale of footage that just by the nature of a documentary, you capture things and then you craft them.
Yeah.
And so they were kind of acting as writers in a way, sort of simultaneous as I'm editing. So
This is a process we commonly do around here, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, and that's the nature of documentary for sure.
Post production writing.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
luckily, like I said, they were doing that. They were saying, "Hey, we're kind of thinking, here's the structure. We need to talk. We need to show him talking to these people and different. He's going to go to this place, and that's the order it happened. This interview, we got a lot out of this one, maybe not as much. I'm not, not going to name any names, but it's just the nature of documentaries, obviously, and we do it. This is what we do, but just the scale of it, and like I said, with a lot of them, he speaks Italian fluently and English as a second language, and so he would do a lot of interviews in Italian, and it wasn't translated yet, and so there was a mixture of, I think, like certain interviews that have the whole interview on frame, and there'd be like a comment, and that would have the Italian, and then but it would apply to like 5 minutes. So you'd still have to use, I had Google Translate on my phone, and we would be pulling together, and then we would send it to someone who speaks Italian and say, "Hey, make sure this looks right."
Which, by the way, it sounds technical, but that's a nightmare for an editor to not know what word do I cut after, because I
Right.
can't speak this language. Because when
Right.
you're editing documentary, sometimes you're cutting out like the flubs or the ums or the uhs or
Right.
something. And so not knowing the language, it's an impossible task. Like, I don't know exactly how you did it. It's
and
kind of
like
amazing.
I said, we would send it to someone to review, and they would say, "Yeah, this makes sense," and somehow we would get it. Like, there wasn't a lot of times when they said, "This isn't right." Like, it was somehow we figured it out, and Google Translate's kind of
Lots
amazing.
of Google
Yeah.
Translate, yeah.
And Christian kind of knew.
She got the hang
she
of the
was
language.
like hearing Italian, and I don't know how you're doing this,
Well, not to accelerate us too much, but we're running out of time. 2 more things I want to cover. I want to talk about color, but I also want to talk about, just give me kind of the summary. What did you end up creating? How much time did you spend on it? Did you fly to New York City and watch any of it? And I'd love to hear about the color grade process as well, since Adam, you worked on that. So maybe why don't we, since you'll take us home, Adam, why don't you talk a little bit about color grading? And I don't know if it was mixed formats. I know that I had one shot,
The best
Two,
shot,
actually.
the best shot in there.
one shot in there of a super slow motion horse. So
Yeah. So we, the color grading process, because it's documentary, which is pretty common, like you shoot it over time. And so I'm not sure exactly their production process, but they did use multiple different cameras. I don't know if that means they had one crew or one DP on one day and then another crew. But then even sometimes within the same scene, they're shooting on like a Sony Venice, and they have an Alexa and then maybe like a Red or like another DSLR or something, and they're just capturing the same moment at the same time, but just different cameras. So as a colorist, you just have to kind of lock everything into a color standard. That's why we have these standards, is to make sure that all these different sensors and cameras and looks can all look unified. So I just kind of followed a lot of those standards, but then other times where they wanted it to look more, I guess, cinematic or a little bit more like culturally relevant to like what the architecture of some of these shots, where they gave us some freedom to kind of push the color creativity a little bit. And honestly, it's one of the really cool things to, I always think like people would walk into my office and be like, oh, wow, that color just looks amazing. And I'm like, well, I haven't started yet. It's just like a really pretty shot, or like a really pretty like architecture. They were shooting in these like, kind of look like the Colosseum. It's like the stone, like the holes in the like the lights coming
buildings,
through.
yeah.
You know, like all these places across Europe, and I'm like, yeah, well, it's easy to make something look really, really good when it's just like ancient architecture and already has like that character and the grit to it that you try and sometimes add in color. Like it's already there, so you're just making it better. So doing that, and then, you know, later on we had to, kind of skipping ahead, but we had to format all that stuff for a big, like an IMAX or a movie theater screen. So all of that is new territory. I haven't done that too much, but all in all, as far as color goes, it was a really cool experience, great learning experience, and then matching all these cameras and then matching each scene. We wanted them to all kind of feel different as he traveled throughout Europe. And then doing a lot of those new things on the technical side. It was really cool.
That's great. Well, TAYA, why don't you give us kind of a summary of the project and how it finished off?
Yeah, so it was an interesting thing in that, you know, sometimes a project starts and you know exactly what it's going to be and where it's going. This was a little bit different in that, hey, we got this footage. This is what we're going to make. Started out as a 90-minute special, I think is what it was called. And then, you know, through that process of selling it and licensing it and all, you know, all the stuff you know about really well, it turned into a 3-part series. So we cut the entire thing from a 90-minute to 3 45 minutes with new content, everything. I mean, you can imagine like that was its own thing. So that was like, we did the first thing, and then we kind of paused for a while. We did, we weren't working with them for a little bit, and then we got a call. We did the show, and then same thing, pause. And then we got another call, and the last call was, hey, this is actually going to play in theaters now. Yeah. And we're like, what? You know, so it was the first thing I've ever done that was going to play in theaters. And they had different routes they were going. We were talking to IMAX at one point, talking to different things. I don't know if I can even say that, but there was different routes. There was different places it could have ended up. And I think it ended up with Fathom Events, and I don't really know exactly what Fathom is, but it's a company that acquires, I guess, more interesting or independent or musical content, especially things that are related to musicals or like concert movies are a thing that they do. And this is kind of a concert movie mixed with a documentary. So anyway, it was taken by Fathom, and it ended up playing in 1,000 theaters across the U.S. for a week. So, I mean, it was just wild, like looking on Fandango and just seeing, okay, let me see where is it playing in L.A. Oh, I've been to that theater when I was a kid. Oh, where is it? Oh, it's in here. It's in New York. Here's in Oklahoma City and Tulsa. You know, it was just a weird.
And you went to the premiere, right?
Yeah, and I went to the premiere in New York City, and so it played in Times Square, and they had an event outdoors in Times Square where some of the artists from the movie. So it's not just Andrea that sang in this. You know, a bunch of other artists that he met up with. Yeah. And they did a live pop-up concert there with TAYA Smith from Hillsong that heard Oceans. And so yeah, that was wild. And you know, some of the music that we scored was playing like while we were standing there waiting for the concert to start and after. So that was weird. And
I think they also have a Times Square billboard that was designed by someone in this building.
So like, you know, Maddie here designed the Journey logo and everything, and that was huge. Yeah. Just above that. And so you're just standing literally in the middle of Times Square, and all the stuff that our team has created is happening. And then we go into the AMC Empire, I think it's called Empire 25, I want to say. It's one of the places where they do a lot of the big premieres and full out event, red carpet, people in tuxes, you know.
Did you go?
I saw Andrea Bocelli. I didn't meet him.
Andrea, I edited this piece.
Yeah. I mean, we got to meet a lot of really, really cool people and a lot of the people that were in the film. Andrea, I didn't try to I didn't want to, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really know how to deal with celebrities.
As an editor, it's like, I've been looking at your face for the last year and a half.
Exactly. Yeah. But it was awesome. And it was a rewarding thing to just go and like enjoy it. And be in I'd never been to New York City either. So that was fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So taking it all the way from a trailer to a movie in the theater was our journey.
Premiering at Times Square.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, first, Josh, great job. That was awesome. I remember, I still remember back that trailer phase because I remember having that conversation where we all knew, like, if this is incredible, maybe you get to do more. And also I knew it was so exciting for you because you love music and have a music background. So I was like, I think he'll like this if he gets to work.
Just take opportunities that you get and, you know what I mean? Don't ever take an opportunity for granted.
Absolutely.
I guess that's the lesson learned.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Retrospect from the Archives. We are always so excited to talk about the different projects we get to work on. And if you want to learn any more about what we do, just check out our website, retrospectfilms.com, or you can find us on all the social mediums. And we'll see you next time in the next episode. See you later.